Okay, so I'm Gabby. I decided to do the importance of balance and the right and wrong balances this week. Um, so the daily lives of women are less constrained than men's because we are given more behavioral freedom. Women who express masculinity are viewed a lot more positively than men who express femininity. It was found that people no longer prefer having sons to daughters because they would be more uncomfortable if their sons were to show interest in girly things rather than having a daughter to take an interest in sports, trucks, or tools. The ideal woman perfectly balances her masculine interests with femininity. This balance is called the feminine apologetic. And an example of a woman who represents the feminine apologetic well is Christmas Abbott, who is a CrossFit competitor, weightlifter, and NASCAR driver. She's quoted in the book stating, "Be nice to everybody, but always be ready to protect yourself." I really liked that quote because I don't know, it's relatable. Um, Barbie also represents this balance because she does anything she wants, whether she's a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, an athlete, and she always looks good doing it. Um, Women who are regarded as masculine by American culture, such as a Black or lesbian woman, are often forced to perform the feminine apologetic, whether or not they have masculine interests, because they do not fit the pretty white or searching for a man's approval stereotype. Um, and Black women also face a race apologetic when they make their hair appear like longer or shorter to conform with what society views as beautiful. And Serena Williams has proven that there is no wrong way to be a woman, but apparently that's just like an idealization right now, because pariah femininities are or femininity that challenges the male dominance or wrong ways to be a woman. And these women don't defer to men. They don't care if men find them attractive. They withhold sex without concern for whether men approve or do not create a household with a man. And they defy instead of balance, usually because they have too little money, the wrong mix of identities, or the wrong bodies to conform to conventional femininity. Uh, Good examples of balance are a woman construction worker who still goes on dates with men, a lesbian prosecutor who wears skirts and heels, or a woman with a high-powered job but plans to leave work once she marries to start a family.
All right, so hi, I'm Joaquina, and my wiki focuses on victim blaming, or as the textbook kind of labels it, mismanaging harm. And also, I talked about femininity as well, but I didn't think it would be appropriate to really speak about those two topics in together because one topic is on victim blaming and blaming women versus femininity being implicitly white. And I just didn't think those two would really go together and it was really appropriate. So I kept those two separate in my wiki. But for victim blaming, what I discussed was I said that unfortunately in society, we have come to a point where we blame women for the assaults that happen to them, and specifically it has to do with the sexual assault or rape, those kinds of things. Those tend to get kind of thrown on women and the blame kind of thrown on women. Even if you don't mean it, it could be microaggressions like, oh, well, maybe you teased him, or maybe you did this and that led him or the perpetrator to do that act. But, you know, in any other situation and with any other crime, the perpetrator would be the one absolutely at fault. For example, in my wiki, I gave the example of a robber. if someone robs a person, you're not going to say, well, you were standing in the middle of a park at midnight. Why were you standing that? It was like you were asking to get robbed. Nobody says that. They say, okay, let's see what I can do to help. Let's see if we can call your credit card companies, all that kind of stuff to try and help. But nobody really does that with sexual assault with women. They try and figure out a way to blame the other person. And some of this even comes from other women too. And I gave that example. I gave the example that the textbook gives where other women thought that people who were sexually assaulted in college were naive or even stupid, I believe the book said. And then I also gave some statistics that I found saying that 20% of all women that go to college are likely to get sexually assaulted or have been sexually assaulted, and only 12% of those cases get reported. And I believe that it has to do with this act of victim blaming, because victims just don't want to come out because they feel like they're going to get blamed. But anyways, past that, what I use to discuss femininity being implicitly white is actually Disney. Um, I was thinking about it for a while and I didn't really know exactly what approach I wanted to take, but then I realized that almost all the Disney princesses are white. And you know, kids grow up looking at Disney princesses as like the ideal feminine beauty, the ideal for beauty, and there isn't much representation of minorities with Disney. Disney is getting so much better at giving kids like different princesses and stuff that don't exactly fit like the white feminine archetype, but there's still a long way for Disney to go. And hopefully in the future they'll include more minorities in their works. And yeah, that's it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I like that Disney thing because it is really interesting, especially like for me like, growing up. Like, I mean, now we have like Princess and the Frog, and I think like there's a few other, but like other than that, like, and there's Jasmine who growing up like I saw, but like for like our generation, I think it was mostly just like Mulan, Jasmine, and I think that's it,
And
right?
Pocahontas.
Oh yes, and Pocahontas. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like none of them are African American except for Tiana now. But you know, but
Yeah.
anyway, yes, I like that point. Okay, so I focused on the three types of bargains that women do. So obviously we know, according to the last chapter, men also bargain, and this is just a way of kind of like you almost like conform to patriarchy in exchange for some of the rewards that will come with it. So for example, so women, there's three types. So there's emphasized femininity. This is basically just an exaggerated form of femininity, and it is oriented to accommodating their interests and desires of men. So in this strategy, this would be known as like the typical like housewife. So a lot of times in this strategy, like the women will kind of conform to the patriarchy and become like the housewife and taking care of the kids while their husband is the breadwinner, providing for them. So at the same time, while she is emphasizing her femininity, she's also getting the benefits and rewards of patriarchy through her husband. So a lot of times this is also could be called like a gold digger or stuff like that. So there is a lot of risks with this kind of bargain, especially because we don't always look the same for our whole lives. So age plays a role. So at a certain point, you have to kind of consider, all right, I'm not going to look this way. And my husband at some point isn't probably going to want me. So that's where emphatic sameness comes in. And this is the opposite, where women will actually downplay their femininity in exchange for the right to do a lot of like play the masculine role. So for example, in the book, they said, so instead of being a doctor's wife, a woman would be a doctor themselves. So a majority of these women's, they might declare majors that are associated with men, and they might even almost kind of like, I don't know, I'm looking for a word, like almost like diss other women who are more feminized, and they might look at them as kind of like, you know, like stupid or, you know, whatnot. So yes, while this is like another strategy, it actually is really negative towards women as a whole. It just kind of creates a divide, and, you know, but it is a way for us to kind of, you know, like blend into society, and, you know. So the last one and my favorite one, which I think applies to me personally, is gender equivocation, if I pronounce that right. So it's basically using masculinity and femininity strategically when it's useful. So this would be, for example, kind of just how so outside of here, I may, well, actually, this is what the book used to study. So, or like just an example. So women might be out on the streets protesting and being very tough, and, you know, but at the same time, they might also, when they approach a man, they might be a little bit more flirtatious, or they might be a little more kind. So the way the book explained it was, or this is what someone said, it said, I'm sorry, I'm looking for it. Oh, you have to be aggressive for the street, but also pretty for pictures. So yeah, this type of bargain isn't available for everyone. It kind of depends on your environment and where you grow up. But yeah, with all that being said, I think the chapter focuses a lot about the negatives with being a woman, but I think that it's important to kind of include the end, which I liked, because it was talking a lot about the feminist movement and a lot of other movements that are being developed today, and they're working towards creating a more equal society for men and women. So it's looking up for us, but yeah.